Hello to all you thrill seekers and night owls. Tonight, we're stepping into the eerie realm of the unexplained and the supernatural. We have gathered 6 chilling tales of skinwalkers that will set your pulse racing and make your skin crawl. Are you ready to be consumed by the fear that lurks in the shadows? Brace yourselves, keep your lights on, and let's journey together into these terrifying tales of the skinwalkers. Let's get started.
Story 1. Shapeshifter in the Desert, a Coyote's Tale. This chilling tale was not a personal experience, but rather one that befell a dear friend of mine. I've had my own encounters with the eerie wilderness and its residents. Coyotes and the legends of skinwalkers, to be precise. The most disquieting of those experiences was awakening to find my sleeping bag encircled by paw prints. The silent, nocturnal visitors leaving no other trace of their presence. However, these instances paled in comparison to the terror Patrick encountered, a nightmarish episode that forever tainted our beloved, secluded backcountry retreat. Patrick had been camping in the area for a few days, basking in its solitude, yet he felt an unsettling presence. A coyote that seemed to linger in his peripheral vision, always there, yet never overtly so. Its silent surveillance was unnerving, but he dismissed it as mere wildlife curiosity. On the morning of his departure, Patrick loaded his truck and began navigating down the wash leading to the fire road. As he glanced in his rear-view mirror, he noticed the coyote trailing him. It was an odd sight, but what transpired next would chill him to his core. As he transitioned onto the fire road, the coyote broke into a run, keeping pace with his vehicle. A surge of fear gripped him, prompting him to accelerate, reaching speeds of around 35 miles per hour. Yet impossibly, the coyote matched his speed, running alongside the truck. In the stark desert morning, Patrick stole another glance at the creature. His blood ran cold as he saw the coyote rise, inexplicably onto 2 legs, its form blurring and shifting. It now wore what looked like buckskin pants, its fur morphing into a garment. Almost instantly, the coyote was no more, and in its stead was a figure, a human draped in coyote fur, running with inhuman speed next to his truck. He dared another look, and in the blink of an eye, the figure had vanished, swallowed by the arid landscape. The chilling silence of the desert was all that remained, the echoes of terror lingering in the air. After that encounter, we never returned to our hidden grove, the memories of the place forever marred by the haunting image of the shape-shifting entity. The coyote's eyes, the transformation, and the suffocating fear became a part of our campfire stories, a chilling reminder of the inexplicable mysteries that lurked in the wilderness. Story 2. Two-Legged Terror, the Canine Beasts of Winter. This terrifying encounter occurred roughly 12 years ago. My family owned a farm nestled deep within the heart of an Indian reservation. One winter, I found myself home alone during the Christmas season, tasked with looking after the property while my parents were away, indulging in festive shopping. Late into the night, amidst the deafening silence of the snow-laden landscape, an unexpected cacophony arose. It was our cows, their distressed moos echoing through the frosty air. The wild dogs, known to roam the area, were undoubtedly the culprits. Hastily, I slipped into my boots, seized a shotgun, and ventured out into the snowy expanse, ready to defend our livestock. The scene was straight out of a classic horror film. A thick blanket of clouds obscured most of the moonlight, yet the full moon pierced through just enough to cast an eerie glow over the fresh snowfall. I sprinted towards the center of the field, my heart pounding in my chest. As I arrived, I spotted 2 canine figures locked in a standoff, growling and snapping at each other. I thought to myself, perfect, 2 with 1 shot. Loading a shell into the chamber of the shotgun, I prepared to fire, but then it happened. The chilling sound of the shotgun being racked echoed through the silent night, causing the 2 dogs to cease their quarrel. They turned their heads towards me, their eyes reflecting the cold moonlight. In a sight that defied all logic, they reared onto their hind legs and darted away, their movements eerily similar to those of humans. I froze, my blood turning to ice in my veins. Stories of skinwalkers and other native legends I had heard growing up flooded my thoughts. As a white man, I had dismissed these tales as mere attempts by the native kids to frighten us. But that night, under the spectral glow of the moon, the boogeyman stories took on a horrifying reality. Story 3: The Creature in Grandma's Backyard. This bone-chilling incident unfolded during a summer month I spent with my cousins at our grandmother's remote house. It was the sweltering August of my 15th year, and I was the eldest among my cousins, who ranged from 10 to 14. We had a habit of staying up late, sharing spine-tingling tales that sent shivers down our spines. One night we ventured out into the backyard, deciding to build a campfire. Our grandmother's home was nestled in a rural suburb, surrounded by thick forests with man-made paths weaving through them. The houses were built on hills, with only part of the basement submerged underground. This detail would later prove to be significant. We gathered in an open space towards the east side of her yard, shielded from the view of neighboring homes, and encased within a 3/4-mile radius of land owned by our grandmother. As the clock struck 11, we found ourselves immersed in a game of truth or dare after exchanging horror stories. My 14-year-old cousin dared me and the 13-year-old to venture into the forest paths for 10 minutes. Being an adventurous spirit, I readily agreed, though my younger cousin was more reserved. The darkness hadn't fully descended yet, so we decided against carrying a flashlight. 5 minutes into our walk, the fire's glow barely visible through the trees, we decided to return. What we encountered next still haunts my nightmares. Standing in the middle of the path was a hulking creature, a grotesque blend of human and canine features. Its eyes were unnaturally bright, illuminating its humanoid head atop a dog-like body, complete with human hands and feet. Paralyzed by fear, we watched as it darted away from us, disappearing towards a creek running through the yard. Erupting into terrified screams, we were soon met by our other cousins and grandmother. My memories blur here, the shock and terror scrambling my senses. But I woke up in bed, suggesting they'd escorted me back to the house. The house was located in Michigan, and even in late August, the mornings carried a slight chill. One morning, I skipped breakfast and rushed outside to join my cousins, only to find them running towards our grandmother. To our horror, we discovered her dogs, lifeless and mutilated. That night, we retired to bed early. A sudden thud against my head roused me around 2 a.m. My cousins huddled together on the opposite double bed, their eyes wide with fear and fixed on me. The 13-year-old subtly gestured towards the window. My heart pounded in my chest as I turned to look. Pressed against the glass was a distorted face with wide, gaping eyes staring at me. I let out a blood-curdling scream, and the figure vanished into the darkness. The police found no evidence after my grandmother called them. I left soon after, vowing never to spend another night in that house. Story 4: New Mexico's Hidden Horror. In the sweltering summer of 2004, on the outskirts of Gallup, New Mexico, I was confronted by an entity so grotesque and chilling that it irrevocably shattered my skepticism. All my life, I had been a staunch realist, firmly stating, "I'll believe it when I see it." Little did I know, the universe had conspired to make me a believer in the dark folklore that pervaded the region. The day had been long and grueling. My 10-year-old son and I had spent it scrubbing away at our old apartment, erasing any remnants of our life there. The sun had long since set, and the night was unusually quiet, with only the occasional rustle of dry leaves breaking the silence. We were ready to bid farewell to our old dwelling and start anew. As we stepped out into the open night, a swift movement caught the corner of my eye. It was a figure, shifting from behind my neighbor's car to a nearby tree that stood like a silent sentinel between our apartments. It moved not with the grace and precision of a human, but with an animal's stealth and speed. However, it lacked the terrifying features often associated with creatures of the night. No glowing red eyes, no snarling teeth, no nauseating scent of decay. Yet it was far from ordinary. Bathed briefly in the harsh glare of a nearby streetlight, its form became clear. It bore a striking resemblance to the beast from Beauty and the Beast, albeit stripped of any cartoonish charm. Its body was cloaked in coarse brown fur, not a worn pelt, but an integral part of its being. It was unmistakably a wolf, but one that challenged the laws of nature. Its most disturbing feature was its gait. It walked on its hind legs, stooped awkwardly, with a chilling semblance to a human. As we made our way to our vehicle, it lurked in the shadows, cowering behind the tree like a guilty apparition caught in a sinful act. Once inside the car, I turned to my son, breathless, and whispered, "Did you see that?" Relief washed over me as he shook his head, oblivious to the macabre spectacle we had just narrowly escaped. My brother-in-law, steeped in local lore, dismissed my encounter, insisting that a skinwalker would never have allowed itself to be seen. Yet, the image of the creature remains etched in my mind, as vivid as if it were yesterday. I know now that such entities exist, and they lurk in the shadows, hidden from the prying eyes of the world. And every night, as I close my eyes, I whisper a silent prayer, hoping never to cross paths with such a creature again. Story 5. Barking in the Night, Confronting the Skinwalker. In the arid outskirts of Tuba City, Arizona, our protagonist found themselves as a guest in Karen's grandmother's humble abode, nestled within the heart of the Navajo Nation Reservation. A thrilling curiosity about Navajo traditions had brought them here, but they soon found themselves ensnared in a chilling encounter with the supernatural. An unusual stray dog had taken up residence near the house. Its dark, shaggy fur, an eerie blend of a German shepherd and a Labrador, shimmered ominously under the desert sun. The creature had a peculiar habit of lurking outside their window, its deep-set eyes peering into the home with an unnerving intensity. Its presence was an unwanted shadow that stretched across their stay, a cold dread that began to seep into their bones. One day, Karen, her voice echoing with frustration and fear, chased the creature away from the wood box outside. It scampered off, disappearing behind the dilapidated shed, but when they returned from a grocery run, they found the stray dog attempting to pry the front door open with its paws. The sight was grotesque, unnatural. Karen once again chased it away, but something had shifted. The air grew thick with unease. Grandma looked on, her face pale and drawn, her lips whispering silent prayers. As night fell, strange sounds echoed across the landscape. There was a barking noise, but it was twisted, distorted. It did not sound like a dog, but rather a man, his voice deep and guttural, mimicking the sounds of a canine. Woof, 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 ruff, rrrf, arf, arf, arf. The words seemed to echo endlessly into the night, a chilling symphony of terror that played on their deepest fears. The frightful barks then morphed into a panting sound unnervingly close to their window. Karen, driven by a morbid curiosity, pulled back the curtains. The sight that met their eyes was straight out of a nightmare. The stray dog stood on its hind legs, its eyes no longer canine but eerily human, twinkling like the eyes of a venomous spider under the moonlight. Its paws had transformed into deformed hands, bearing long, sharp fingernails that glinted ominously in the dim light. A foul stench permeated the air, a mix of rotting meat and damp fur. The women screamed, slamming the curtains shut as Grandma rushed in. Without a moment's hesitation, she armed herself with the warm ashes from the fireplace and a shotgun, her lips moving in fervent Navajo prayers. With a courage that belied her frailty, she ventured outside to confront the monstrous creature, yelling defiantly in Navajo, banishing it from their sanctuary. The following day, steeped in age-old tradition and wisdom, they summoned a medicine man. He cleansed their home with the smoke of sacred cedar, blessed each one of them with an eagle feather, and made them ingest the bitter herbs known as eagle's gull. The protagonist was given an arrowhead for protection and a pouch of corn pollen. Their hearts pounded in their chests as the medicine man revealed the horrifying truth. The stray dog was not a dog at all, but a skinwalker, a malevolent entity known as Yoshi in Navajo folklore. It had killed the real dog and assumed its form, creating an illusion to deceive them. The medicine man explained the deadly spitball technique used by these entities, which involved spewing human bones into their victims. In a chilling climax, he extracted a large piece of human skull from Grandma's shoulder, a tangible reminder of their brush with the supernatural. The story ended with a sinister undercurrent, leaving a bitter taste of fear that lingered long after the tale was over. The horror of their experience was a chilling reminder of the ancient and malevolent forces that lurked in the unseen corners of the world. Story 6. The Unseen Watcher, a Navajo Nightmare. The story begins with my grandmother, a woman of mixed Navajo and Irish heritage, who held an uncanny belief in the supernatural. Her faith was not bound by the confines of religious scriptures, but was rooted in the paranormal, the inexplicable, the unseen. She was born and raised in the vast expanses of Nevada, never having ventured east of Montana. A land of arid deserts, its solitude punctuated only by the eerie howls of the coyote. On a chilly autumn evening, during my formative years in grade school, our family embarked on a journey to visit her. The visit unfolded as one would expect when visiting an elderly relative, quaint and uneventful. However, an undercurrent of unease ran throughout the stay. The house shrouded in perpetual twilight as grandmother insisted on keeping the curtains perpetually drawn. She would often be found peeking through the slits in the fabric, her eyes reflecting a strange mix of fear and anticipation. When probed, her reply would send a chill down our spines. "The Yenaldlushi is watching me." A few days before our departure, a terrifying incident unfolded that remains etched in our memories. As twilight fell, grandmother and my infant brother were in the front yard, engaged in the innocent activity of planting flowers. Suddenly, the tranquility of the evening was shattered by grandmother's frantic screams, calling out my brother's name. urging him to get away from that creature. As we rushed outside, guided by the sense of impending doom, we saw her cowering against the house, clutching my baby brother, her body trembling uncontrollably. In the yard, illuminated by the dying embers of the setting sun, stood an enormous black dog, the size akin to a Great Dane. Its gaze bore into grandmother's terrified eyes, an unnerving intensity radiating from its deep yellow orbs. On noticing us, it gave a dismissive huff, and with a swift, almost unnatural movement, it disappeared into the encroaching darkness. In the aftermath of the encounter, grandmother was a shell of her former self. Her words echoed in our minds, a chilling prophecy: the unsettling has found me. It was as if an invisible clock had started ticking, counting down to an unknown horror. She vacated her home within weeks, leaving behind decades of memories to escape the specter of the dreaded unsettling.